All right, welcome back, everybody. This is our final session. I'm delighted that Vijay Vaidyasaran has agreed to be the moderator. Vijay is the business editor for The Economist. I started reading The Economist in the last century as an undergrad engineering student to learn more about business, and I haven't stopped reading it. It still comes every week into my inbox. I read it online, on paper. And for me, The Economist has always been a magazine that kept me on track with what's happening in the world. One trick I learned in reading The Economist is that it has way too much content. And so I learned to not fret over reading all of it through. I'd always read the business section, of course, and then the technology section and so forth. But again, The Economist has been a great source of intellectual companion with me. I got to know Vijay a few years ago, and we've been in touch ever since. And so although you never see Vijay's name in The Economist, his hand is there quite a bit in shaping the stories and the headlines you see there. So with that, I'm going to get Vijay to kick off our panel discussion. We've got some great participants. I've gotten to know all of them recently, and I'm delighted that they have agreed to join us here. Go ahead, Vijay.
Kareem, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. I've been at The Economist for more than a quarter century, so I imagine I've bored you and some of our participants as well over that time with my ramblings. But thank you for the kind words. I'm very distressed you don't read every word in The Economist. I hope you'll do more diligently next time. But in the meantime,
I'll try. Yeah.
We are thankful for any support in this age of fake news and so on. So thank you. It's such an honor to be here and to have such a distinguished panel to talk about large enterprise digital transformation. This is our capstone to our afternoon together, or depending on your time zone, could be middle of the night that you joined us. So thank you all for being with us. We're going to talk really about and dig deep into how the current pandemic and related crises has accelerated some of the progress on digital transformation and the applications, unexpected and novel applications of digital tools like artificial intelligence. With me are three fantastic practitioners who are at the cutting edge. Barbara Martin Coppola, Chief Digital Officer of IKEA Retail, Ingka Group. Marcello Damiani, Chief Digital and Operational Excellence Officer at Moderna. And Al-Noor Ramji, who's Chief Digital Officer of Prudential PLC. So I welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us from your various time zones today. I know it's an incredibly busy time, but it's an incredibly important topic, and our quality of our audience speaks to that, to the interest that they have in really understanding the phenomenal changes that are taking place today. And with that in mind, I've written a lot about this on our pages about how changes that companies had thought about but shelved or thought might be a 3 to 5 year plan have suddenly been implemented in a matter of weeks as they've been confronted with the crisis that we find ourselves in the last few months. The sudden absence of what was known as legacy, when your entire profitability disappears overnight with no prospect or uncertain prospects about the future, you are suddenly liberated from traditional legacy constraints. And have called it on the pages of The Economist, the innovator's hour. This is the moment where fresh thinking is welcome in the executive suite, not put into a silo of let's let those crazy innovation people have a weekend get together and then come back with some white papers, but rather, how do we save the business? How do we create new opportunities at this time of crisis? So all of you are in those hot seats. You're really helping your companies at this time. Maybe I can start with Barbara. Barbara, will you give us a sense of how has your organization responded to the business crisis brought on by COVID-19? And can you talk a little bit about the role of digital tools and transformation? How has your organization responded to the business crisis brought on by COVID-19? And can you talk a little bit about the role of digital tools and transformation?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm Barbara. I work for IKEA as Chief Digital Officer. And, I've been in the technology industry all my career, more than 20 years. I joined IKEA about 2 years ago to lead the transformation and digitalization for the whole company globally. And so it's been 2 years that we have been progressing with a huge transformation in terms of technology, ways of working, in terms of accelerating e-commerce and just pretty much putting data at the center of everything we do. In the last months, it is absolutely true that things have been accelerating in an incredible pace. And I don't exaggerate if I say that in the last months, we have done a year's work easily. And what has contributed to this was a couple of factors. One, we have seen incredible demand online, and we actually had to very, very fast adapt to the huge increase online that we have seen to serve the customers, to fulfill the orders, and to be able to really adapt to what we were seeing. Therefore, stopping everything else that we were doing and very much focusing on what we needed to do at the moment. It's been incredible to see how the focus has brought different functions together to work together towards the new reality that we were having with daily communication, daily interaction, and how little by little we were creating new tools, new data, new information, and at a point of time we were not reactive anymore, we were proactive. It's been an incredible journey of togetherness, I would say, across the company, where reprioritization has happened across every single part of the company, and digitalization has taken the biggest role in the transformation and has accelerated the ways of working in a different way, the center of analysis and data information, how AI and its applications have been refocused towards what was happening to create that hockey stick and acceleration that we needed. So it's been a fantastic journey of opportunity, of rethinking, of humbleness, as not everybody had the answers and the uncertainty was high all around us. And so overall, humanity, led togetherness to fight a sort of bigger enemy, if you will, and how this has become an outcome at the end that has been very, very positive for the company and its modernization overall.
Barbara, that's a powerful testimonial to the work that your team's doing and the power of digital. Really, all business wound down while digital took off in a powerful way, as I understand it. There's so much to dig into with that, but we'll come to that when we come to our group session in terms of corporate culture, silos, and maybe even a more agile way of communication and decision making. But let me ask, can you give a couple of examples to liven up the point you've made? What's a great example of what you did differently in the last 2 months because you were forced to?
Well, one of the examples is we actually revamped the e-commerce site in 13 markets in actually a matter of 1 week, where we brought a completely different structure that made us more visible on Google and helped us increase conversion rate actually by more than 54%. That happened in a record time together with the countries and together with the data organization. The speed at which we were able to capture the demand and at the same time work on the fulfillment. As demand was going high, we had to fulfill these orders and make sure that people got the orders that they were passing on. And the overall experience will be end-to-end satisfactory for consumers. I would also say that the systems had a certain capacity to deal with the peaks of demand. We had to 3x and now 5x the capacity of systems over a week to be able to handle the demand from a volume perspective. So at the end of the day, this is only possible with coordination and dialogue and with can-do attitude and with togetherness so that we can take decisions and move at the speed that the circumstances require.
So Barbara, I am a huge fan of your company's products over the many decades, I would say. I've also tried your online offerings before COVID, although not during the crisis. It's astonishing how quickly you accelerated your commitment to your digital products. Can I ask, what was the main obstacle to doing this? Why didn't you do this amazing thing before? Can you give us a sense of what was the biggest obstacle you overcame?
Well, one of the facts is that the stores were closed. So everybody in the organization focused on pushing the online business forward.
So the people that might have said no couldn't say no anymore. Is that fair to say?
The focus was solely on one channel, if you will, and the stores transformed themselves into fulfillment centers overnight as well. So this single-mindedness of many people in the company helped us leapfrog capabilities in a very, very fast way. And as the stores have been opening back, what we have found is that the total business for IKEA actually increases. So online helps actually the overall business for IKEA.
Terrific. Okay, great. Thank you. That's a good introduction. Let's turn to Marcello. Marcello, you're in a hot seat. The world is watching your company develop a novel approach to coming up with a coronavirus vaccine to take on COVID-19. Can you give us a sense from your perch as a digital and operational excellence officer, how has the crisis affected operationally the work you do? And can you give us a sense of how it may have been before the crisis hit versus how operationally things are different in the period of the crisis?
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. So Marcello Damiani, Chief Digital and Operational Excellence Officer at Moderna. Just as an introduction, I started my career as a software engineer, developing tools to test software we put in satellites, then moved to the high-tech industry and worked at Motorola for several years before joining the life science industry and making a big transformation at bioMérieux, which is a diagnostic company, and then joined Moderna, which was a startup at the time, 5 years ago, to build the digital landscape at Moderna. So, and why I'm saying this is I had the luxury to start from a greenfield, to build a digital landscape from a greenfield. It was early days, and now if I forward 5 years, go back to early January when we received the sequence of the COVID vaccine, the shift of the company completely changed. And so, but to understand this, you need to understand how we do what does our technology do. So messenger RNA is instructions that we send to the cells in the body to produce proteins to cure or prevent disease. So your body is made of protein, whether it's insulin and the hormones, growth factors, everything is protein. And this can be in human, but the instruction we send, messenger RNA instruction, exists in all life, whether it's animal or plants and so on. So to be able to work on the COVID vaccine, what we do is we send instruction to the cells, and this for any vaccine, and we code in those instructions the proteins that are on the surface of the cell of the virus. So we train the immune system to attack those proteins, and when people get infected with the real virus, well, the immune system is trained against those proteins, and therefore they can attack the virus and avoid replication in the body. So this is happened in January 13, and we built our infrastructure completely digitally. Shouldn't we have this digital infrastructure at Moderna prior to this? I would have said that we probably wouldn't be able to produce the vaccine in such a fast manner. We produced the vaccine in 2 months between the day we received the sequence on the internet, because we never received the virus itself, the sequence of the virus, till we send it to clinical trials with the NIH. And this was the fastest. I think the previous fastest time was 20 months for the same period.
Right.
So this is how a digitally enabled company using some algorithm and learning from previous experiences allowed us to accelerate the development and to go into clinical trial with the COVID vaccine. I will pause here.
So this is fascinating, obviously. Now, vaccine development, for those who are not familiar with the healthcare industry, is typically years long. It's a long process historically, but we have seen advances in accelerating it. You're taking it to the next level with the concept of something like an AI factory, as I understand it. Can you talk a little bit more about operationally, how does the digital approach that you're taking actually accelerate the pathway from virus sequence to a test vaccine? And of course, now you need to look into various trials and ultimately to scaling.
Yeah, so if you look, we digitized every function in the company. We looked at the research space and we digitized. We looked at the manufacturing space and we digitized this manufacturing space. We looked at the clinical space and we digitized this space. So we digitized every piece of the company. And if you look what scientists do, they go to a web portal to design their sequences for messenger RNA and encode whatever protein they need to produce. And all this, we set it in a digital way, and we collect data at every step. In life science, data is not native, like you go to the web and you have the data available. You need to go through experiment to capture the data, and then once you capture the data, you can work with the data. So we build all the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure to capture the data, and once we had all this data available to us, we started building algorithmics on top of it. And this can be from simple rule-based algorithmic to very sophisticated neural networks and so on. And those algorithmics help us with the sequence design for our messenger RNA, for COVID and other products we worked on. So if I take the COVID vaccine, there were two major algorithmics that we used that help us optimize the sequence, optimize the production of the sequence, and allow us to have a higher quality from the first time. Should we have done this 5 years ago when we didn't have all this infrastructure, probably we would have failed a couple of times before we were able to produce the vaccine. This time we were right the first time, and this is because of all the learning. So you enter into a virtuous cycle where you have more experiment that you collect more data from, and once you have more data, you can use the data to build more algorithmics, so you can do more experiments and more clinical trials and so on. So we enter into this really virtuous cycle, and this has been the case for the past 5 years.
And as I understand it, again, we have to see what comes in the next months with clinical trials and final approvals and scaling. But the concept of mRNA vaccines is that you're really building a platform. This is a platform technology, and therefore you may be able to build on the learnings not only for this particular vaccine but for potential future needs as well. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at it, messenger RNA is like an information system. You have 0 and 1 that encode the whole software. In messenger RNA technology, it's the 4 letters that you have in the DNA. There's 1 letter that changes in the RNA, and those encodes any protein in the body. And what you change is the code and the sequence to produce the protein that is missing, or the antigen, which is the protein that you see on the surface of the virus, to fight the viruses in the case of vaccines. So this is why this new technology is fascinating, but this is why as well making a digital landscape that supports it is very important, because your learning is across all the platforms. So you can learn from building a vaccine to be able to build for rare diseases or for oncology or for cardiovascular diseases. Your learning is spanning across the different therapeutics area and across the platform.
Great. Okay. Well, very, very exciting. Let's shift gears. Let me turn to our final speaker to get a perspective of what's happening from the financial industry. Al-Noor, can I ask you to give us a few words on how Prudential has seen this crisis and what have you found as responses that made sense for your firm?
So Prudential, as you know, is a very old company. We're about 170 years old. So our mission.
Oh, you're a youngster. The Economist is 178 years old. Al-Noor.
Well, I knew we'd have a debate about things like that.
Harvard is 400 years or something like that. So,
but I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win with an Italian president anyway. So I think we'll carry on. I'm sure Marcello's got history. So our mission has changed recently to make our customers healthier and wealthier, which sounds a strange thing for a company that was involved in protection. And typically, an insurance company, as you all know, something not so good happens, and basically you get some money for it. And nobody really likes interacting with an insurance company if they're honest about it, right? So building something that brings people to a super app as we built is an issue, you would think. But changing it to a focus on health and wealth, I think has changed the subject. So can we really aim for prevention? And unfortunately, as we all know, we were tested pretty severely with COVID, right? So we'd launched this with AI, with the idea being that with affordability and accessibility globally being an issue, without AI we couldn't launch anything which would check your symptoms, which would do a health check, etc. Luckily, we had launched it already a few months prior, so it came into play for two reasons, which I'll go into because you want examples. One of them was in Indonesia. Indonesia's 20,000 islands, getting to people is more or less impossible. Forget about lockdowns, just getting to them is an issue. So inviting people for a test, just even registering for a test. So we offered free health test, free COVID testing as soon as it was available. And literally within a week or two, all the free testing was used. We had to build other capacity. Now that was something without a digital tool people wouldn't have known about, wouldn't know where to go, we would have had difficulty knowing where to go to do those tests and so on. And by making sure we capture the data of people, we can then do follow-ups and so on. And it's nothing to do with our insurance business, at least directly. Right? That's one issue. And then secondly, giving people health checks and or video doctor links. Right now, everybody's heard about video doctor links. I'm sure the audience doesn't want to know about them. But the point is, again, to another speaker, Marcello, I think you said, getting the data all the way through from a health check when you're healthy, through to a video doctor, through to AI running in the background, building up your picture is very important. I mean, for instance, if Elon Musk ever said this, he hasn't, but I'm just going to invent him saying something. You know, we know more about the Tesla than we know about the human being. Now, that's a really idiotic state of affairs, right? But it's true. So we're using AI for the purpose really of scalability. We're not using it just because it's sort of sex and drugs. I'm sure that's not allowed to be said on the video anyway. But you know, we're in Britain, so we're slightly more free than you guys. So the issue here is we're not doing it because it's exciting, right? We're doing it because it is exciting, but it's actually fulfilling a purpose. So that's the human side, and we hope that. So it's already live in about 10 countries in Asia, where it's really needed. So we're going at you could call it the bottom of the pyramid in Harvard speak, right? One of your colleagues says things like this. But it's really got a serious business effect. Not only do we save money, it's the only business where the interest of the human and our business interests are completely aligned. If you don't use our product, both of us are happy. That's not likely with IKEA, which I also love. It's not, you know, you have to use a product. Here, if you don't use it, we're both happy, right? You are insured, you don't really want to go to hospital. Now on the sales side, our regulation forbids us from selling insurance unless you're physically in the same room. So you can imagine our business was devastated, right? But within a few weeks, and this is to the point, Barbara, you kind of were making, the regulators even, and the regulators are, I can't say a bad word about regulators. The regulators don't change regulation easily, right? But thankfully, they're also human. So during this time, we changed to be allowed, in some cases, to sell over the video. And most of us think this is insanely easy, but in our case, you have to record the video. You have to make sure that we weren't selling something the VJ didn't want to buy, okay? And again, this is stuff you guys already know about from the AI perspective. Are you selling something, does the customer understand? Not only has to be videotaped, but has to be GPS stamped, time stamped, so you don't cheat about cross-border selling. So anyway, I won't bore you with the details, but all those things we had to go live with, and you all heard the story about how suddenly things have changed. But frankly, it's core functionality. So now, to conclude, the COVID testing is now part of the ecosystem, so we can link to doctors, hospitals, etc. All of them can use the same app, but also the salespeople are seeing the same stuff if the customer lets them. And most of the time, the salesman cannot see any of this stuff. But because the salespeople are agents for the customer, most of the time the customer wants them to look at the data. So what we're really getting at here is building a system that hopefully prevents people from getting into trouble. I'm looking forward to Marcello's stuff so we can hook it up, hopefully make it part of a normal thing. And I'll stop here, but you can see the change is both regulatory, which is far more fierce than, it's not as bad as pharmaceuticals, so I'm not going to exaggerate. But also it's many, many countries had to change the regulations. So those are the two examples.
That's very interesting. Now, you know, the regulators are conservative by nature, as you observe, but the insurance industry is also known to be conservative by nature. And so this crisis does sound like you have, in a sense, out of necessity, been forced to innovate in multiple ways, and your digital tools are really what enabled this. The Indonesian example of those islands, it was already difficult to reach them before COVID, but clearly you had a mandate from government to try to help, and it sounds like several stars aligned to help you do this. You talked about a super app and getting the data right. Can you talk about a challenge? Give us something that was hard to overcome. Not regulation, but something that actually from either the way that you had to handle data or silos within your organization. Can you give us a flavor of what was the hardest thing to overcome in being able to achieve some of these gains that you described?
So look, the whole process of transformation, everybody knows the classic. You guys are all professors, one type or another on the phone. But if you look at this clash of business models point that Karim talks about, clearly we're the clash of business models. It isn't just a question of channel conflict, because actually the way digital makes money, or the way platform-based digital businesses make money, is different. You have this network effect, you have all these other things that AI can use very positively. So it wasn't so much resistance, it was lack of knowledge and friction. So because we're intermediated business, our distribution is intermediated, right? So we don't historically go direct to customers, but now with digital, we go direct. So there was this channel issue, but that was less friction than you'd imagine once the agents got to realize they could reach more people through this medium, right? And then suddenly resistance, and during the crisis, thank God there was some silver lining, you could reach people, so that went away. The bigger issue was more the business model and how the accountants, financial guys, don't understand this will make more money. So digital is a superset, is not understood. Everybody thinks it's the pimple on the elephant's, I won't finish the sentence, okay? Certainly not on American video, but it's not. It's a superset, and then sometimes we meet Karim or we meet Vijay or we meet, right? It's more often we meet on the video. So that's a superset. Sometimes we meet physically. And with our territory, Indonesia, Malaysia, China, India, look, I don't have to tell you guys about this. It's impossible to meet everybody. So that's the hardest bit. The financial guys haven't yet got it. They still believe this is a small thing. It'll go away. these IT guys, they still think it's an IT project, etc.
Right.
I'm exaggerating for effect. You can see I've done it 8 times now, so I don't need to tell you how many times the same battle is fought, right? But it's once the finance guys get it, victory is complete.
I think those are words to live by, if we can get the finance guys on board. Great. So I'm really pleased that we've had a chance to hear from each of you and get a sense of where your companies are at. We've come to the halfway mark of our panel, so I'm going to begin to open up to questions from the floor. And just to give a notice to our audience, I'm going to ask our panelists a couple of questions now myself, taking the chairman's prerogative, but I will turn to your questions. Please use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature that's on your portal that should allow you to ask questions. And if I may ask, please, if you have it directed to a particular speaker, that would be helpful as well. And I'll be sure to go to those in just a moment. But let me ask my 3 speakers. I hear, and I've reported on the pages of my publication, a number of companies saying that they've been able to accomplish in a matter of weeks what projects that had been planned as a 5-year project or a 10-year project, or projects that were proposed by innovation folks or enthusiasts but been shelved by, let's say, corporate leadership. But these have been rolled out in a matter of weeks, in some cases even a week or 2. This pace of innovation is incredible, it's energizing, but is it sustainable? Can you give a sense of your organizations? What's your feeling about cultural change at the organization? What Al-Noor referred to as sort of the finance guys having the last word. Maybe if I can ask Barbara and then Marcello to comment a little bit, that dynamism that we're seeing at so many companies now, even dare I use the buzzword agile processes of decision making, is this going to be sustained after the crisis fades into the rearview mirror, hopefully soon enough? Barbara, let me ask you first.
Yeah, I think the company has realized a lot of different things that are getting speed to a higher level, and the benefits of it. So the first part that I would say is action-driven leadership is now more appreciated than ever. The fact that a decision taken is better than no decision at all is important. And how working cross-functionally is extremely important, because then we have all the diversity of the views and the information needed in order to take the right decision. The pace has accelerated in an incredible way, and we've never heard so much the word digitalization in the company before. It has become top of the agenda for IKEA. Before, it was true that it was spoken and it was referred as one of the most important things that we needed to succeed. Now it is somehow of a high necessity, mandatory decision, and we are going to be moving forward and continue the pace at which we digitalize the company. To the point that—
So Barbara, just to press you on that, if I come and visit you 3 years from now, or Zoom over to you, or teleport, who knows what advances are possible in the next 3 years. Will we have a similar conversation with you talking about digital is front and center, we're moving things in 10 days that would used to take 2 years to do? Or do you feel that somehow the pace cannot be continued? Is it really possible to keep up extraordinary commitments and change in old ways of doing things permanently?
I think we can have it permanently. I
Okay.
also about an athlete getting in shape, and there is a phase that can be a bit getting there somehow, and then you are so much more in shape to continue with speed, resilience, long distances, etc. Digitalization means that digital gets integrated in every part of the organization. It means that the consequences on operations, finances, ways of working are well integrated, understood, and practiced around the organization. So there is a tremendous amount of change that we are bringing in the organization, especially when the organization has operated with another model for 75 years, feeling like a baby close to the 400 years at Harvard. But still, a long journey of excellency and retailing, and now how the innovation, the possibilities, the touch points, the ways of working, the data, the engineering is completely accelerating and bringing much richer, I would say, possibilities to engage with consumers.
Okay, Barbara, you make a powerful case why the change will be permanent. Marcello, let me ask you, as you made already an elegant argument, your company was born digital. Maybe the change isn't that great for you. Maybe it's just business as usual for you.
Yeah, actually for us, this change, cultural change, existed before we had COVID. So we had all the building blocks actually in place to be able to support us, and we were able to demonstrate by being able to swiftly and quickly adjust and adapt to this tsunami that came to us. So I think the key here is, from the beginning, we did not settle on what everyone else was doing. We wanted to build the company with digitization in mind, and this was the strategy, supported from the top down. And I think when we had this virus hitting us, well, this proved that it was the right strategy to be able to be agile, to be able to be flexible, to be able to adjust quickly, and so on. Of course, we don't have all the legacy, and that's why I have the luxury and started with a greenfield. But I know how it can be painful in major company transformation to be able to get the integration in place, to get the collection of data, and then to build the model around it. I think we are lucky that we didn't have all this to deal with. We just built it from the ground up in a digital fashion.
Great, thank you. We have a question on the Q&A portal. Again, I remind our participants, please use the Q&A portal rather than the chat feature. We have 23 questions, as I can see, so thank you for being so active. I'll do my best to get to them. The one that's just popped up, it's actually from an anonymous attendee. I do ask, please give your names if possible, but this is an excellent question, so I'm going to pick on it anyway. The questioner asks about AI. We haven't talked too much about the role of artificial intelligence specifically. The questioner asks, is AI and technology innovation treated by separate organizations? In other words, are they siloed separately? Or are they under the umbrella of the Chief Digital Officer? Since all of you hold that post at your companies, can you talk about whether how you see AI within your company and related areas, obviously machine learning and data analytics? Is there some kind of geeky silo where they're kept, or is this all fall under a broader remit of the kind of processes that you look after? Let's see, who wants to take this first? Al-Noor?
Sorry, I got in the habit of muting things. So in our place, I think it's both. So we have the geeks in one place for a fundamental reason, because they get on with each other and they're not very suitable for human consumption, right? So you want to keep them together. You need to motivate them, you might lose them, etc. On the other hand, to make them useful, and someone mentioned new ways of working, because we're pushing the new ways of working, so for periods of 3 or 4 days of hackathon, they're distributed. So their sense of pride or their sense of achievement comes from doing things with others, but they're kept in one tribe. And I think probably next year we'll change that as our organization turns into a tech organization. And one of the points we haven't covered is the dilemma, the friction is really getting people to think software first, digital first. I know, that's hard for people. They still believe they have to do months of specifications and writing instead of test and learn. That's a discipline. So I'll stop there, but we're making a change, but there's a lot of people need education. So we're testing and learning people is probably the most important point, not really technologies and AI per se.
Got it. Barbara, how about you?
They all report into the digital organization, and then they are distributed and embedded in the different businesses where they add value. So they actually work cross-functionally, hand in hand. to understand and to integrate the activities and the value creation that they do together with the businesses. We find that a lot of what they develop has big consequences in terms of operations, ways of working, how people actually relate to it. And when we integrate this fantastic people into the different organizations, then that's when we see the biggest value. But indeed, they report all of them into the digital organization, and that tribe that Al-Noor was talking about is very important. There is career possibilities as well for them that are important to keep in mind, so that they see a path in the company towards development and thriving through the years, so that they stick with us and they're happy.
Marcello, how would you respond quickly?
For us, it's the same as Barbara. It's centralized, but embedded within the organization. And what I would say is what's key is that to have the talent that understand the business among those people that are on the central organization. Because you need to understand the function and the problems on the functions to be able to deal with AI and put the right algorithmics in place.
Got it. There's a question for Al-Noor that asks, this is from Yashwani, one of our participants. Do you see the nature of insurance fundamentally changing thanks to the pandemic? It's a simple yet profound question. 3 years from now, will the nature of insurance have changed?
Look, insurance is it's a profitable business, and when businesses are profitable, they change a bit slower, right? We will change because we're already in the midst of this change. But I think yes, COVID alone is not. God forbid we should have something else, but it's not enough to change profitable institutions and throughout industry. This is. But I think yes, can we move insurance to prevention will be the actual question, right? And I think when we do that, both the organization and mankind will benefit hugely. So that's really the game we want to play. I think it will be. 3 years is a long time now that we've had this occurrence, but it's still going to need another couple of turns of the tech wheel, if you like.
Here's a question from Ty Montague. For Barbara and Al-Noor, maybe Al-Noor, you can continue on and Barbara can follow up. The two of you, do you fear the disruption of IKEA or Prudential by companies, be they startups or existing competitors, that are willing to move faster in AI adoption? And in the case, Al-Noor, since we're sticking with you, I know, for example, Chinese companies have been very early in adopting AI and other digital tools. I lived in China for 6 years and was our business editor for The Economist. I covered the rise of Ping An and other domestic players, Alibaba, Tencent. Do you worry about a challenge from the upstarts, precisely because as you said, you're a very profitable legacy business as an industry, and therefore not a lot of incentive to disrupt yourself?
Yeah, so the good news is we have disrupted ourselves. And I think the good news about AI and software and digital is it's a small number of excellent people game, right? If you find a small number of excellent people, like in Silicon Valley, like in Shenzhen, like in any place, I think it's the people. And providing you have those people, I'm less fearful about this, which is not to say that the Facebooks and the Tencents, in your case, Alibaba, those guys, not just Ping An. Ping An's more like us, actually, but the other guys get into insurance and can use their data and AI prowess. That is more, I wouldn't call it fearful, because mankind's health problems will need a lot more than that. But I think we can grow with them. I think we can grow with them. Hence the ecosystem model. We're not trying to do it ourselves.
Right.
But I'm not fearful because we have the people strength, I think.
Barbara, how do you respond to that question about disruption? And if you could talk about some of your own initiatives. I remember having conversations with your senior people before the outbreak, where there was discussion of even moving from a buy to rent model, for example, and a cradle to cradle models for your products and so on. Can you talk about how any of those have been affected or accelerated by what's been happening? And again, the potential of upstarts disrupting you.
So the first thing that I want to say is that I come from the pure digital world. I spent 7 years at Google, 3 years at Grubhub. I know that world inside out. And I believe that when you combine strengths of some retailers with the skills, the speed, the ability of pure players, there can be an incredible magical combination there. And so it's really important to not overlook important advantages such as physical locations of stores being very, very close to 90% of the population, and understanding how AI applied to an integrated value chain can actually be very, very, very strong. So that is the first thing that I would say. The second thing is important to be open to innovation and to be working with a lot of the pure players. We actually just acquired one in Silicon Valley. And so we can, merge the worlds and actually, work together towards a higher, faster, bigger value production for human beings.
Can you tell us just a word about your acquisition? What kind of company? What does it do? And why did you acquire them?
Yes, we acquired Geomagical Labs in Silicon Valley. And what they do is they work in the spatial AI field. They apply actually, you take a picture with your camera of your living space. It computes 3D models in the cloud. It comes back and you're able to actually swap furniture, make it disappear, and have suggestions of furniture in a photographic quality picture. So it's a new field of AI that we've been experimenting, and there is an important initiative of 3D modeling at IKEA that together with this company is creating incredible possibilities. So think about democratizing design, making it for free, photographic experience, thanks to AI, and fast computing in the hands of millions of people in the world. So that is the acquisition we made.
Great, thank you. Marcello, a question for you. You're both digital officer, but also operational excellence officer. Can you tell us what is the reason you're holding both posts, and what does that mean for your company that you're able to integrate those points of view and responsibilities?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, when you look at, if you want to optimize and have a data-centric view of your end-to-end processes, and when you want to optimize your processes across the company, you need to look at them in a different way when you're working in a digital world versus when you're working in an analog world. And what you want to avoid is to build the same thing you have on paper and digital, because this would be, in most cases, inefficient. So hence the importance of combining both. So when you go and digitize a process in the company, first you look at it end to end, you map it for a digital world, and then you implement it in digital systems. So you're capturing the data, and the data can help you with improving this process. So that's how we've been building it, and this is why we combine the two at Moderna.
A question comes from Satya Mayandi, who asks a related question about roles. This is for all of you. The creation of the Chief Digital Officer role, as opposed to the Chief Information Officer role, what difference did it make in bringing business and operating model transformations to your organizations? Did it create a mandate and empower the work that you're trying to do compared to the previous and more common CIO role? I wonder if any of you wants to take this on. This is sort of a question of corporate structure and hierarchies. Barbara, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I can take that one. The Chief Digital Officer has a business mandate that has an accountability for business value and creation, and is very, very focused on customer experience through digital enablement, AI, data, etc. So the product-focused work, the agile work, everything that we've seen in technology companies is enabled through the Chief Digital Officer and integrates with traditional business functions, if you will. So it has a much more consumer-focused, and the outcome is business, which is maybe a slight difference from previous CIO roles. That said, I would say for that to happen and to have the impact, the CDO needs to report to the CEO. And that is the case at IKEA, because it carries the weight of the transformation in the company as well. That digitalization, new ways of working, and adopting really new ways is part also of the mandate of the Chief Digital Officer.
Very interesting. So you need to really have the ear of the Chief Executive. Do either of the two of you want to comment on this question?
Yeah, I would say the CIO roles maybe 20 years ago was the CDO role today, and with time it went into being mainly infrastructure and IT systems. And I think this is coming back, and now it's the CDO. But I fully agree with Barbara. We need to be able to have impact on the business and understand the business to be able to influence how the business is operating, and being part of the chief, the reporting into the Chief Executive Officer is a key element of it.
There's a question specifically for Barbara. How worried are you that 3D printing and AI-based personalized products are going to put you out of business? It's a question from Gokhan Beach. I apologize if I didn't pronounce it correctly, your name.
Well, there is a whole lab at IKEA that is experimenting with 3D printing and actually understanding whether this could be scalable for the many people globally. And so there is a whole lot of collaboration with a lot of different parts of the industry to innovate and see whether this could be accelerated and adopted in many different places. So we're very much looking into it. We're excited by it. And when you think about it, are we going to a world of producing more products, or are we going to a world of using the products and giving them back, or using them when you need them, and then allowing for ownership to go somewhere else? Because at the end of the day, we're within the limits of a planet. And so this is an important business consideration for all of us, so that we develop sustainable business models with the planet at heart.
There's a question from Michael Pugh for all of you about talent. At Michael's organization, they're already finding data science talent increasingly difficult to come by. Can any of you talk about the talent pool that you need for accelerated digitalization, and what challenges you might be encountering? What are you doing about it?
I can take it. I fully agree. Talent is difficult to find, and especially talent that understand business, because I think in this world you need the dual competency, and every talent that we hire not only need to have the data science component, but need as well to understand the function that this data science is supporting. And this has been always a challenge. But I think there's plenty of educational programs nowadays that forms those talents, and more you can see them. I mean, I live in the Cambridge area between Harvard and MIT, so maybe we have a bigger pool than somewhere else.
Well, that's why I'm surprised to hear you say this. You're probably in one of the great hubs
still, if you want
globally for talent.
Yeah, if you want this dual competency, and if you want really very specialized talent, the pool is still very limited. And fortunately, you have big universities that are working on building the future generation of those talents.
Any other comments on talent? How's the picture in Asia, Al-Noor?
Look, I think the center of the universe is moving from Cambridge, my friends. We hope for you that it stays there for a while. But joking aside, look, I think it's two things, as we said. One is, it needs far fewer people than you think, but they need to be really, really good. And yes, you can find them obviously in Cambridge, but you can also find them in other parts of the world. I think secondly, don't underestimate their ability to learn. These guys, I was going to call them kids, because if you forgive me at this age, right? But these guys can, and guys, male, female, whatever they are, they can learn very quickly. And I think their jobs will supersede so-called business jobs. Whenever I hear the word business, I feel like it gets on my nerves, because all of us are business people. And the technology organization, we make money. So the CDO job is actually a make money job. It's actually a P&L job. But what's more important is that everybody needs to learn those jobs. And that's going to be the tricky thing, Vijay. It's how do we get the non-data scientists to learn data science? I think that's harder than the data science guys learning about the business. And that's a dilemma for us because there's fewer of one than the other. So the conversion...
You're right. It's such a key point, both the swing towards Asia, but getting business managers who are technically sophisticated. Speaking recently to the new dean at Columbia Business School, and he's transforming their entire curriculum to be STEM intensive, not because he wants his people to be coders, but he wants future business leaders to be able to sit on diverse teams with technical people, with brilliant AI experts, and to be taken seriously, to understand how they think and work so that they can make strategic business decisions informed with that left brain and right brain. So I think your point is a good note for us to stop on for a moment. We're gonna ask for some audience participation. In addition to our questions, we have something called a Mentimeter, and we're asking if you can, for everyone who's participating, please, to think about the one-word takeaway from the session. You've been doing this all morning, so I assume you're familiar with this. We're going to generate a word cloud. Please go to menti.com. The details are in your chat function, but menti.com on your phone or laptop, and punch in the code that's, again, on your chat feature, but I'll say it out loud if you don't have it handy. It's 745731. And the organizers will share with us what is the resultant word cloud in just a moment. We can keep talking for a moment while people have a chance to do that. Let me ask my last question, and I'll ask for brief answers from each of you since we're running short on time. What is the world post-COVID going to look like? And we hope it comes much sooner, with Marcello having spectacular success soon, and hopefully a couple of others as well, bringing vaccines to the world very quickly. But even if it takes a few years, what is the new normal going to look like? If you can give me just a sentence or two from where you sit. And since I mentioned you, Marcello, why don't you give us your vision for what the new normal will be like?
Yeah, well, first of all, I hope, yes, that we will go back to normal very soon, like everyone, and we're optimistic. I would say the new normal, there will be a cultural shift because people has adjusted in a very short period of time to a new way of working, to a new way of shopping, to a new way even of doing activities, outside activities and inside activities. And I think this probably will influence the post-COVID world. Whether there's something specific, I don't know, but what I'm sure is that there will be major changes, mainly if you look on this conference and how we do events, this will be changing. How we do business is changing, like with Barbara and with Al-Noor. I mean, the whole business is evolving. And I think this will have a lasting effect. So that's how I think the post-COVID world will be. Hopefully, we'll be able to see each other again very soon and have a face-to-face, but there will be a lasting effect.
Thank you, Marcello. Barbara, a quick word, a vision of what the post-COVID world is like?
So I'm going to add on what Marcello is saying, because I agree 100% with what you said. I just dare to dream that people would take human well-being at the center of the post-world. And that means work-life balance, possibility to be with families a little bit more. I also want to think that we might want to care about the lasting impact of business in the planet. And so I hope that this time of reflection for all of us will help us have more sustainable lives as individuals and as collective societies. So being ambitious, but why not dreaming and hoping for a little bit more human-centric lives.
Terrific. Vision of a human-centric future. Al-Noor, last word.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add, except I wish it all comes true. I think the balance between making as much attention on the human as on the business, I think will be fantastic. I'm slightly more cynical than you, but I endorse all your comments, and let's wish it's true.
Terrific. Well, great. I think we've been really lucky to have such a distinguished and open panel today. I see from the word cloud, for some reason, the biggest word is bilingual, at least last time I checked. So I will finish myself by saying, "Sheshier, gracias, obrigado, thank you," and hand over to Karim.
Thank you, Vijay. First, I want to just thank all the panelists. You know, when Marco and I wrote this book, we thought we'd have this conversation about 3 years from now, when our next book came out, but we didn't anticipate this fast pace of transformation take place. And I think it's just amazing having got to know all three of our panelists here, what the shape and pace of this transformation is, and what exemplary leaders these people are in both in their own companies, but as a model for other leaders as well. So I just want to thank them for the time they've taken. As Marcello said, you know, as I looked at the attendance on this panel, you know, at this conference, we went from 225 to about 150. There's no room at HBS. You know, HBS is structured in 90-person rooms and then a 1,000-person auditorium. So I could not have a 250-person conference on campus, regardless of the fact that we have people from around the world joining us, you know, from Turkey to South Africa to Lagos to Cambridge, Massachusetts to London. So there is truly something special about this digital world, and I hope that we continue to use that. Marco, you're here with us. Any final thoughts, reflections as you heard today?
What an incredible event. First of all, thank you all for participating, and I've learned so much. We're going to have to write like 2 more books at least, based on all the new insights. It's truly amazing. No, I think it's been an incredible learning experience. And when we wrote the book, we thought that AI and digital transformation was going to be an important thing for people to think about, and it obviously has become an essential thing that is really shaping our society in multiple ways. And I think my last note is that as we sustain this and we kind of go into the next phase from sprint to marathon, you know, however the vaccine turns out to be, I think many things are never going to be the same again. And it's a real issue, I think, in terms of how we define ourselves as leaders and managers, and in terms of the kinds of responsibilities that we think about. The bilingual issue is interesting in the sense of both having to be aware of technology as well as people. But even more than that, there's a whole new range of ethics that I think we talked about today, a fair amount, that is really going to take over as we think about sustaining the efforts, because the world will change and the impact on the economy, society, and is going to be vast. And I think that at Harvard Business School, we spent a lot talking about leaders. I think that we're going to have to be really modest and rethink in many ways how we approach the subject and how we think about the kind of skill sets, capabilities, and fundamental ethics of leadership going forward, as we're all so much more interconnected. There's so many more challenges and opportunities in front of us.
Yeah, so let me get Kayan in here as well. Kayan is the founder of the Outthinker Network and enabled this platform to come together. Kayan.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to just close with just a few words of thank you. This is the 3rd summit after 2 that we started. Just as COVID hit, we decided we should organize something to raise money for charity. We had 2 summits. You're going to get access to the recordings of all of those summits for having joined this summit. And I do want to say that, you know, especially thank you for the collaboration with Karim and the Harvard Business Analytics program. Really what this was meant to be about is bringing cutting edge concepts and knowledge to innovators like you that are committed to impacting the future. And you asked for something in the space of AI, digital analytics, algorithms, and hopefully you engaged in a conversation that gave you some clarity about that. And I really want to thank you, Karim, again, for your support of this. We have raised, we're tallying up the numbers, but it looks like we've raised about $25,000 from this summit. That adds to the $160,000 that we raised for the prior summits. And most of that is going to go to a Give Direct campaign that's supported by HBAP, going directly to support frontline and essential workers. I'd be remiss without just thanking our sponsors and supporters, Oxygen in Brazil, Caliber, Twin Global, the Entrepreneurs Organization, Artemis Connection, EGN Business Networks in Denmark, Phoenix Learning Development, Institute for Competitiveness in India, the Management Center of Turkey, the Global Business School Network, Deutschland University Network. Keep an eye out for what's next. We're going to be sending you a link to be able to access the recordings of these, as well as we are working on an idea, because people are asking us for it, of how to continue these global conversations about the future. So on behalf of Outthinker and the Thinkers 50, thank you for participating.
Thank you so much, guys. Everybody stay safe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.